Have you ever had someone test your limits again and again, like your boundaries were nothing more than polite suggestions? You know the type. They interrupt you mid-sentence, throw out passive-aggressive remarks, or treat your time and emotions like they're disposable. And society expects us to smile through it all, to be the bigger person. But here's the truth, enough is enough. If you're tired of being walked over, if you're done shrinking yourself to make space for people who don't respect you, this video is exactly what you need. Today I'm revealing some brutally honest, maybe even a bit controversial strategies for handling disrespect without losing your cool, and without ever compromising your self-respect. So stay with me, because by the end of this you'll know exactly where to draw the line, and how to make sure everyone else knows it too. Part 1. Embrace the silent stare. Let's kick things off with one of the most powerful and surprisingly underrated tools in your arsenal, the silent stare. Now I know what you're thinking. Wait, just staring at someone, that's it? Yes, but hear me out. Imagine someone is being blatantly rude. They're trying to provoke you, throw you off, maybe even humiliate you. Most of us instinctively react. We stammer, we try to defend ourselves, or we get flustered. And that's exactly what they want. They're feeding off your emotional response, hoping to pull you into their drama. But when you respond with silence, a calm, steady gaze with no words, no expression, you flip the script entirely. Suddenly, they're no longer in control of the moment. There's something deeply unsettling about someone who doesn't react the way we expect. That unbroken stare, it sends a clear message without a single word. I see you, but I'm not playing your game. It's not about being passive-aggressive. It's about reclaiming your power with quiet confidence. Let me tell you a story. I was once in a meeting where a certain guy kept talking over me, constantly cutting me off like he was delivering some grand speech. Loud, dominant, clearly enjoying the sound of his own voice. I tried to stay polite, tried to interject, but he just kept going, so I stopped. I leaned back in my chair, crossed my arms, and locked eyes with him. No blinking, no frown, just stared. 5 silent seconds. And let me tell you, those 5 seconds said more than any sentence I could have spoken. The room got quiet. People started turning toward him, sensing something shift. And him? He stumbled, lost his train of thought, looked around, flustered. He didn't interrupt me again, not just for the rest of the meeting, but even in the days that followed. Something had changed. He treated me with a level of respect he hadn't before, because sometimes the most powerful no isn't loud or angry. It's silent. It's steady. It's the stare that says, "You don't get to decide how I show up." That silent stare. It's more than just a technique. It's a quiet revolution, a way to say enough without a single word. But let's dig even deeper into why it works and what it awakens within you. Reclaiming your power without a word. The truth is, when you lock eyes and hold that stare, you're sending a silent but unmistakable message, not just to them, but to yourself. You don't owe anyone a reaction. You don't need to defend your worth. You don't have to prove anything to people who never took the time to see your value in the first place. This is about reclaiming your space, your peace, your dignity. Because far too often, when someone crosses the line, whether with a rude comment or condescending tone, our first instinct is to explain, to justify, or worse, to laugh it off just to keep the peace. We tell ourselves, "I don't want to make things awkward." But here's the twist. The silent stare isn't about creating conflict. It's about standing still in your truth. Calm, grounded, unmoved. You're not reacting, you're reflecting. You're holding up a mirror. And people don't always like what they see staring back at them. Most of those who dish out disrespect do so on autopilot. They're rarely challenged, rarely held accountable. But when you look at them without flinching, without blinking, It's like the silence suddenly turns into a spotlight. For once, they have to sit with the discomfort of their own behavior. You didn't accuse. You didn't shout. You simply let them face the echo of their own actions. And in that moment, something shifts, not just in them, but in you. The power of inner stillness. I used to be the person who nervously chuckled at mean jokes, who fumbled through explanations when someone questioned my choices. Every time it drained me a little more, until one day I chose not to explain, not to laugh. I just looked. And that tiny shift changed everything, because standing in silence, owning your space without apology, feels like planting a flag in the ground and saying, "This is who I am. I don't shrink anymore." The silent stare isn't a tactic to hurt someone, it's an act of healing for you. It says, "I don't need to stoop to your level to rise above this." So the next time someone tests your boundaries, tries to make you feel small or pushes your buttons, don't snap, don't plead, don't shrink, just look. Let the silence do the heavy lifting. Let them feel the full weight of your calm. You'll be amazed at how uncomfortable it makes them, and how unbelievably empowered it makes you feel, because that stare, it says everything. I respect myself too much to be pulled into your storm. Transition from previous section. That quiet stare. It's powerful, but what if you took it a step further and gave nothing at all in return, not even a glance, not even a word? The power of pure silence. Here's the truth. Sometimes the most piercing response is no response. When someone disrespects you, they usually expect something back: a defense, an excuse, a snappy comeback, anything that gives them center stage in your energy field. But when you don't bite, when you let their words dangle awkwardly in the air and simply refuse to engage, you rob them of exactly what they came for, your reaction. And that silence? It's not empty. It's deafening, because in that moment they're left alone with their own behavior. No distraction, no performance, just the uncomfortable echo of their own words. And most people, especially the ones who thrive on control, can't stand to that kind of silence. It exposes them. Silence starves the drama. Disrespectful people often mask their digs as jokes, slipping venom into their words with a grin. You know the type. They'll say something condescending and follow it up with, "Relax, I'm just kidding." I remember a time when someone made a snide comment about my work. It was subtle, just sharp enough to sting, but delivered with a fake smile, as if that made it acceptable. The old me. I would have laughed nervously, or tried to explain why the comment was unfair. Maybe even fired back with something equally sarcastic. But that day, I chose silence. I simply raised an eyebrow, looked at him, and said nothing. No defense, no counterattack, just pure, unshaken stillness. The air grew heavy. He looked at me, then down, mumbled something, fidgeted. And that was the last time he ever tried it, because silence doesn't feed their ego. It doesn't validate their need for power. It leaves them holding the very thing they tried to throw at you, their own negativity. Choose peace over proving. The deeper truth is this: when you choose silence, you're choosing yourself. You're declaring without a single word, "My peace matters more than your opinion. I'm not here to dance for your approval. You don't get to pull me into your chaos." It's not just about winning the moment. It's about reclaiming your energy. You see, silence is like a filter. It sifts out the noise, the drama, the nonsense. It protects your space from the emotional clutter other people try to dump on you. And the moment you stop feeling the need to defend every decision, to explain every action, to answer every jab, that's the moment you set yourself free. You no longer hand people access to your emotions. You stop playing their game. And you start living by your rules. I'll be honest, learning to use silence like this didn't come naturally to me, but once I embraced it, it became one of the most liberating tools I've ever had. Let me show you how I made that shift, and how you can too. Silence, once feared, became my greatest source of peace. The less I reacted, the more powerful I felt. But it wasn't always that way. The shift, from reacting to reclaiming power. I used to believe that if I didn't defend myself, people would see me as weak, maybe even passive, like staying silent meant I was backing down. But here's what actually happened. Every time I tried to set the record straight with someone who disrespected me, I walked away feeling drained, frustrated, and somehow smaller. It was like giving them a free ticket to my energy. Then something changed. I started doing nothing. When someone threw a jab or made a snide remark, I simply let it pass, like static on a radio I wasn't tuned into. I stayed still. I said nothing. And something surprising happened. I felt stronger, lighter, calmer. It was as if every moment of silence gave me back a little more of myself. Like I was reclaiming my power one breath at a time. No yelling, no debating, just a presence. So here's a challenge for you. Next time someone crosses the line, pause, take a slow breath, look them in the eye, and say nothing. Let that silence hang in the air like a quiet force field. Let them feel it. You might be surprised how deeply it unsettles them, and how unbelievably liberating it feels for you. Because sometimes the strongest statement you can make is to not say a word. Part 3. Stop explaining your choices. Now let's talk about something a little tougher, something many of us struggle with, the need to explain ourselves. Seriously, how many times have you made a decision that felt right for you, only to be bombarded with questions? Why did you do that? Why didn't you go to that event? Why would you take that job? As if your life is open for public commentary. Here's the truth, most people won't. Say out loud, you don't owe anyone an explanation, your choices, they're yours. And unless someone is genuinely curious in a respectful way, their questions usually come with judgment, hidden behind curiosity. Think about it. People rarely ask why because they want to understand you. They're often looking to poke holes in your decisions, to make you doubt yourself, or worsen, to feel better about their own inaction by questioning your boldness. Your life is not up for debate. When you stop explaining yourself, you're not being rude. You're protecting your autonomy. You're drawing a line in the sand and saying, this is my life, my path, my rules, and here's something deeper to consider. People often demand explanations when your courage challenges their comfort. Maybe you took a leap they were too afraid to try. Maybe you stepped outside the box they're still trapped in, and your freedom? It makes them uneasy, so they ask questions, not to support you, but to pull you back into their safety net. I've lived this. When I decided to change careers, leaving a stable, predictable job to pursue something I was actually passionate about, it was like I had announced I was moving to another planet. People gasped, questioned, warned me. Are you sure? Is that really smart right now? Why would you give up something safe? But you know what I learned? Their fear wasn't mine to carry, and their discomfort didn't mean I owed them a TED talk about my decisions. When I stopped explaining myself, something incredible happened. I stopped needing permission to live my life. But the journey to that kind of self-trust didn't come overnight. Owning your choices without apology. When I left my stable job, the questions came flying in. Why would you leave something so secure? How are you going to make it work? At first, I tried to answer. I laid out my vision, talked about passion and purpose, even walked them through my carefully thought-out plan. But no matter how detailed my explanation was, it never felt like enough. The more I explained, the more questions came, the more I justified, the more I felt like I had to defend my own dreams. And slowly I realized I wasn't convincing them. I was exhausting myself. So one day I tried something radical. When someone asked, "Why would you leave that job?" I simply replied, "Because I wanted to." No follow-up, no strategy breakdown, no 5-point plan, just truth. And you know what? The silence that followed was glorious. It was like I had unplugged the power cord from their judgment. They didn't know what to say because I had said enough, and eventually, they stopped asking. The freedom of not explaining. Here's the quiet beauty of no longer explaining yourself. It's liberating. It's standing tall in your truth and saying, "This is my life. I trust myself. That's enough." When you stop pouring energy into trying to convince others, you finally have energy to live freely, fully, and fearlessly. You begin to understand something vital. Not every decision needs to be dissected. Not every path you choose requires a panel of opinions. Your life doesn't need a round of applause to be valid. And when you say, "I made this choice because it felt right," you're sending a powerful message. I trust my own voice more than I need your approval. Ask yourself this: when was the last time you saw a truly confident person explaining themselves to everyone? Probably never, because people who are grounded in themselves don't need validation. They walk in clarity, they make choices and own them without a committee. A simple rule that changed everything. I used to be the kind of person who'd give a full PowerPoint presentation just to justify a decision. I thought if I could just get people to understand, I'd feel more. I thought if I could just get people to understand, I'd feel more confident. But the truth is, the more I explained, the more I began to doubt myself. Because every time I sought approval, I gave away a little piece of my own voice. So I made a personal rule, a promise really. If someone asked me about a life choice I made, I'd give a brief, calm response. Maybe a sentence, maybe two. If they kept pressing, I'd smile and let the silence speak for me. And guess what? My confidence grew. Not because people stopped questioning me, but because their questions no longer rattled me. I stopped treating my life like a courtroom where every move had to be defended. And I started living like someone who trusted their own compass. So here's my challenge to you. The next time someone asks why you did something, why you moved, changed jobs, ended a relationship, said no to a gathering, look them in the eye and say, "Because it felt right for me." That's it. Let the silence speak. Let the confidence settle. Because when you stop over-explaining, you start owning your life. Fully, boldly, unapologetically. Your choices are valid, not because others understand them, but because you made them. 4. Keep your distance. Now let's get real, because not everyone deserves access to you. Some people, no matter how calmly you speak, no matter how clearly you set boundaries, will continue to disrespect you. And when that happens, it's time to create space. Let's be honest, not everyone deserves a front row seat in your life. You can communicate with kindness. You can set boundaries with clarity. But still, there are some people who will test those boundaries again and again and again. And when that happens, it's not just okay to step back, it's necessary. Some people thrive on control, conflict, or chaos. And if you let them too close for too long, they'll drain you emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. But here's the thing, creating distance doesn't make you cold, it makes you wise. It means you've stopped confusing access with love, or proximity with peace. It means you've learned the art of protecting your energy without needing to explain it. Not everyone deserves access to you. There was a time when I thought I had to stay connected to everyone, to be polite, to avoid tension, to keep the peace. But keeping certain people close was costing me my own peace. I realized something crucial. You don't owe everyone a seat at your table. You don't have to answer every message. You don't have to stay in every conversation. Some people are best loved from a distance, or not at all. And distancing yourself doesn't always require a dramatic exit. Sometimes it's as simple as fewer replies, slower responses, gentler disengagement. You're not being rude. You're being intentional. Protect your peace like it's sacred, because it is. Think about your energy like a beautiful garden. Who you let in matters. Some people will water your soul. Others will trample it without a second thought. When someone continually crosses the line, ignores your boundaries, or brings more harm than healing, you're allowed to step back. You're allowed to say, "I wish you well, but not at the cost of my well-being." Distance isn't always a punishment. Sometimes it's just protection. A simple truth to remember. Not everyone who started with you is meant to walk the entire journey with you, and that's okay, because the more you protect your space, the more room you create for people who truly see you, respect you, uplift you, and honor your boundaries. Sometimes the greatest protection isn't distance, it's presence. The kind of presence that radiates quiet confidence and says, "I know who I am, and I refuse to shrink." The moment I stopped shrinking, there was a time when I tried to brush off the jabs. You know, those subtle little digs disguised as jokes. At first I told myself, ignore it, don't make it worse. But truthfully, it got to me. I started dreading being around them. Every interaction felt like a battle, like I had to defend who I was just to exist in the room, until one day, I'd had enough. I walked in with my shoulders back, head high, not in arrogance, but in quiet defiance. I decided I would no longer carry the weight of their words, and from that day forward, every time they made one of those snide remarks, I didn't flinch. I didn't frown. I simply looked them in the eye, smiled, and carried on as if it didn't even touch me. And you know what happened? They stopped. It was like something in them shifted. They could sense their words weren't piercing anymore. Their power, the power they once held over me, began to fade. I had risen above the noise, and it showed. The energy of walking tall. There's something magnetic about holding your head high. It creates an invisible force field, one that quietly declares, "I am untouchable." And here's where it gets real. People who don't respect you, they hate seeing you confident. It disrupts the story they've told themselves. They want to believe they're above you. They want to think they can control how you feel, what you believe, who you become. But when you move through the world with quiet certainty, when you refuse to play small, it shakes them. Because suddenly, their negativity doesn't stick. And let's face it, society doesn't always know what to do with someone who is unapologetically whole. Someone who doesn't flinch under judgment. Someone who walks like they know they belong. The radical act of holding your head high. Holding your head high isn't about arrogance. It's not about proving anything to anyone else. It's about honoring yourself. It's walking through life with the posture of someone who has nothing to hide, nothing to beg for, and nothing to fear. It says, "I know my worth." And that's not up for debate. Because real self-worth, it isn't earned through the approval of others. It's claimed by you, for you. Every time you lift your chin and meet the world as you are, without apology or explanation, you're reminding yourself, "I am enough." And the more you practice this simple, powerful act of showing up with dignity and confidence, the less noise you'll hear from those trying to bring you down. Their comments will fade into the background. Their opinions will shrink while your presence grows. From hiding to owning my space. I wasn't always this way. I used to slouch, avoid eye contact, shrink into silence whenever I felt dismissed or judged. It felt safer somehow, like disappearing was better than being a target. But over time I began to notice something powerful. Every single time I held my head high, Every single time I chose not to let their negativity enter my spirit, I felt stronger. It was like I was whispering to myself, you are not what they say, you are what you choose to believe. And over time that whisper became a roar. So if you're tired of shrinking to make others comfortable, try this. Next time the room gets heavy with judgment or criticism, lift your head just a little higher and remind yourself, you were never meant to take up less space. Lifting your head high isn't just about how you stand, it's about how you carry yourself through life. Because the moment you stop shrinking, you start rising. Stand tall even when they try to cut you down. I used to believe I needed someone's approval to feel worthy. That if people saw my value, then I'd feel valuable. But the truth is, worth isn't something given. It's something claimed. And I began to claim it, moment by moment, every time I stood tall in who I was. Holding your head high is more than just posture. It's a mindset, a message, a quiet but unshakable declaration that says, I know who I am, I belong here, and I don't need your permission to exist fully. So here's a simple challenge. Try this next time you feel dismissed, underestimated, or disrespected. Whether it's a passive-aggressive jab or a full-blown insult, don't flinch, don't shrink, don't explain. Take a breath. Roll your shoulders back, lift your chin slightly, and look them in the eye as if to say, I see you, but I'm not coming down to meet you. Because confidence isn't loud. Sometimes it's completely silent, but deeply felt. That feeling you'll get, it's peace, not the kind that depends on anyone else's behavior, but the kind that comes from knowing, your words don't define me, I've already defined myself. Self-respect, where it all begins. Let's be real. Respect doesn't start with them. It starts with you. The more you respect yourself, your boundaries, your values, your vision, the less space there is for anyone else's disrespect to take root. So show up to your life like you mean it. Walk into every room like your presence is a privilege, not a question mark. You're not here to shrink for the comfort of others. Stand tall, own your worth, because no one can take away what you refuse to hand over. Life is too short to bend for people who won't bend for you. Here's the truth. There will always be people who don't get it, who don't see your worth, who question your choices, your path, your growth. But here's the gift. You don't have to convince them. You don't have to prove anything. You get to choose what energy you allow into your life. You get to decide what voices you turn up and what noise you turn down. And the beautiful part? The more you live with grounded self-respect, the more you attract people who see you, support you, and celebrate your light. Final words. Walk away with power. So here's the reminder I want to leave you with. Hold your head high. Let silence speak when words won't serve you. And never, never apologize for walking away from what doesn't nourish your soul, because your peace is sacred, and your worth is not up for negotiation. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. If this message stirred something in you, if it reminded you of your power, give it a like and hit subscribe for more content on confidence, boundaries, and becoming who you were meant to be. I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below if you've ever had to handle disrespect or stand tall when it wasn't easy. Let's grow through this together. Until next time. Take care, stay strong, and remember, respect starts with you.